Laura Kelly is playing these Kansas lawmakers like an absolute fiddle. That's what the Kansas governor is doing, and it's brilliant. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It's great to be here on 95.7 FM KCMO. So it all gets started today. And Topeka was bumping yesterday with lobbyists and hucksters on behalf of sports teams saying, you guys, now's your chance. Once in a lifetime opportunity.
Did you make it to the steakhouse?
Did I make it to the steakhouse?
Were they meeting at a secret steakhouse?
You're right. They were meeting at a secret steakhouse last night, Mark. Good memory. I did not make it out to Lawrence because my kid was pooping on me. So I did not get a chance to go out to Lawrence. But if anyone was at the secret steakhouse meeting in Lawrence last night with Topeka lawmakers, please let us know if you are a fly on that wall. But Laura Kelly saying in an official capacity that as they get this special session started today to try to lure the Chiefs and the Royals across the state line, Laura Kelly's not getting involved. Yeah. Laura Kelly, the governor, who has championed enormous economic development projects in Kansas, led by Panasonic out in DeSoto, will not commit to supporting this piece of legislation to use star bonds to get the Chiefs and the Royals across the state line. Laura Kelly told reporters yesterday, and I have the quote in front of me here, I'm impressed by the full court press that has been made to get these teams to consider moving across the river. Adding, it's not something I'm going to invest a lot of energy in. I think this is something for the legislature to work through. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's not forget, Laura Kelly did sign a border war truce with Governor Mike Parson back in 2019. Now, she infamously said back then that did not include the Chiefs. That's her now infamous quote from the time, as the team now actively, or the legislature now actively tries to get the team across the state line. But this is so smart for Laura Kelly. She is staying above the political fray here. She is not going to take any credit out of the gates for advocating on behalf of this piece of legislation. If it comes to her desk in an overwhelmingly bipartisan manner, she will then go out there and say, well, legislature sent this to me, had support across the party lines, so I'm going to sign this. And then here's what can happen. Come 2028, when she's set to leave office, she can handpick her successor, and she can run on getting the teams to Kansas, if it looks like it's going to be a great deal at that point. Because nobody's going to remember that in 2024, and 2026 will be the time when she's up for when she's out of office, not 2028. I didn't mean to scare some of you there. Add another 2 years to Laura Kelly's term, okay? Sorry about that. But, it'll be 2026. And no one's going to remember that she said back in 2024 that she was not going to actively try to drag the teams across the state line. But if it's overwhelmingly popular, then she will use it to her political advantage to handpick her successor and say, it's my administration that brought these two professional sports franchises, or one, even if it's one of two, to Kansas. She'll be able to do that. So I was shocked when I saw the quote from Laura Kelly yesterday saying that she was not interested. But then the more I thought about it, it makes perfect political sense. You know what, though? She's been running laps around the Republican legislature for years now. And they all wonder how she keeps winning, how it's happening. Well, you know what? Maybe you got to look in the mirror. She's playing chess. You're playing checkers, looking for free Chiefs tickets. Getting sucked into lobbyists who are getting paid thousands of dollars to promote the idea of the team going to Kansas. And if nothing else, it's a smart play for the Chiefs as well. It's brilliant for the Chiefs to pay lobbyists to try to entice the legislature to give an offer to the teams to get them across the state line, because then they get the leverage that they want against Jackson County and against the state of Missouri. They're paying for their own leverage. Whether or not they're actually serious about going to Kansas, I don't know. I mean, the team admitted yesterday it doesn't even have any plans drawn up on, like, what a stadium would look like. I know we've all seen the renderings, but, like, official renderings from the team do not exist. An official location does not even exist. So the team is basically just throwing money at lobbyists who are then turning around and, greasing the skids of the politicians in Topeka to try to convince them to pass this Star Bond proposal to then give the teams leverage to go back to Missouri and say, what are you doing now? To go back to Jackson County and say, what are you doing now? That's the game that's being played. And it's brilliant by the teams. Lobbyists, as much as it's kind of icky, they're doing their jobs. There's nothing illegal about it. Laura Kelly's staying above the fray. And, at the bottom of the barrel are the legislators themselves who are just getting caught in the crosshairs and don't even realize it. They're being played by everybody here. And I believe they're going to fall for it. I do. They're going to see the sports teams come into the state capitol as they did yesterday. They're going to sit there. They're going to say, whoa, boy, their eyes are going to get big like saucers. They're going to get some tickets dangled in front of them, maybe to the home opener against the Ravens when they, roll out another Super Bowl banner and the whole deal. And they're going to say, that looks pretty good. Oh, man, could you imagine that in the Legends come the early 2030s? I mean, that's what's going on right now. That's the game that's being played. And I've talked to enough people up there over the last 24 hours, and, they're more or less confirming it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, why not just build a stadium in Kansas and keep Arrowhead open? That way the Chiefs want to get away from it all, and they just pack up and head over to Kansas for the weekend.
That's fine
right?
with me.
Just like we all do it. We got properties at the lake and stuff.
For old time's sake, we'll go to Grandpa's place over at Arrowhead.
Taxes are running a little high in Jackson County this year. Let's move on over to the lake place for a while.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my goodness. And why is it, as I continue to hear from various lawmakers, it seems like there are some Democrats who are continuing to actually make some sense, like this guy, Dan Osman from Overland Park.
One of the biggest things is about municipal costs or county level costs. I realize that for a Star Bond district, all of it's self-contained within the Star Bond itself. But for a project of this nature and this size, there's going to be infrastructure needs. There's going to be maintenance.
Absolutely. All reasonable questions from Dan Osman, an Overland Park Democrat. I'm listening to that and I'm saying, okay, like those are the kind of common sense questions that you would think that folks who call themselves conservative Republicans would be asking. Instead of just going all in on Star Bonds, the greatest thing ever, who's owning the stadiums? Because my understanding is in a Star Bond district, it has to be owned privately. The teams do not own the stadiums in Jackson County, meaning in large part they're not paying for a lot of the upkeep. Who's paying for maintenance? Who's paying for infrastructure around the stadiums? Who's paying for the upkeep of that? Why is it that this Overland Park Democrat, Dan Osman, sounds more conservative than a lot of conservatives have been over the last 2 weeks on this issue? I'm just curious why that is. I don't know how this guy votes. I never even heard of him till I saw this clip on KCTV5 last night. But I'm like, those are the things that, like, any common sense politician working on behalf of the people, looking to be a good steward of the taxpayer dollars, should be saying publicly and asking publicly. And I've had a slew of them on over the last 2 weeks, and not many are bringing that up. They're just, and anytime I ask, it's like, oh, devil's in the details. We got to figure that out. Why do I have to ask for that to come up? 913-408-7957 is our studio line and our text line here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM as we hit 6:15 on a Tuesday morning. Tirade Tuesday, as always, is coming up at 8:30. We've got the Tucker Carlson tickets at 8:15 here on KCMO. So I was yesterday days old, when I found out something about Frank White in this whole ordeal that I've got to share with you coming up next on KCMO. So I was yesterday years old when I found out that all this talk over the last year or so about the issues in Jackson County, whether it's the property tax fiasco from summer of 23 to all the drama involving both professional sports teams, the vote on April 2nd, up till now when, Jackson County's trying to figure out how to respond and what to do next. Frank White doesn't show up to these meetings at the county level on Mondays, and one of the reasons that he is not there is because he is very busy. I
always wondered what was up with that.
Yeah, he is very busy, especially
got the lowdown?
This time of year. Yeah, as the first base coach for your Kansas City Monarchs. So I started hearing about this yesterday from some people, and then I said, okay, let me just make sure I'm not getting awful information. And you go to the Monarchs baseball website. He's right there on the roster. He's the first base coach for the Kansas City Monarchs. And I thought to myself, I think we had talked about this and heard about this.
Done things in the past. I was unaware, so I just fell off the turnip truck. We're just now finding it out, I guess.
Yeah,
Other
exactly.
people knew.
Exactly. So he's the first base coach, and he travels with the team as well. So
man. Gary South Shore Railcats, Lincoln Salt Dogs.
They got a big 3-game series starting tomorrow. Kane County Cougars over there in Illinois. So yesterday was a travel day, and he was not at the county commission meeting once again.
Interesting how that works out.
So about half the year, nearly, from May till early September, Frank White is not available to be your county executive in Jackson County. He effectively may, pretend to do the job, but the guy is coaching first base for an independent baseball team as your Jackson County executive. Think about that.
He's got the beeper on in the box there, doesn't he?
As far as I can tell, no one can get a hold of the guy. Anyway, so I don't think he's got a beeper anywhere. He could use a beeper.
So buy tickets out at Legends Field and shout some things out from first base.
Well, that's what you're going to have to do. If you're a Jackson County resident and you want to get anything done, you've got to go heckle the guy as the first base coach. That's what you have to do. I mean, this is...
Boy, if it were only that simple for everybody.
How is this not... Yeah. How is it not getting so much more attention? And I'm disappointed in myself. I totally admit that, for not having this before yesterday when, I started reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, was Frank at the meeting today? And I was told by multiple sources that no, he was not at the meeting, second week in a row.
Didn't you get your refrigerator magnet schedule, Pete? You need one. I'll see if I can find one for you.
Please do find me a Monarchs refrigerator magnet calendar so I can, keep tabs on the Monarch schedule. And they're like, no, he's going to Illinois. And I'm like, for what? Well, the Monarchs are playing the Kane County Cougars starting tomorrow. Big 3-game set there on the road. And then, by the way, they're on the road all week. After that, they got the Chicago Dogs. Week off or a day off on Monday. And then they're back home to take on the Sioux City Explorers.
Okay.
So, there's a big stretch here for the team.
Road trip to Winnipeg, Kevin, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
The Gold Eyes at some point.
Exactly right. So, he's kind of unavailable to be the county executive. And by the way, on the website, it says that he's been on the coaching staff for the better part of a decade. Now, I don't know if he was on the staff in 22, if he was doing this in 22 when he was running for re-election. If Teresa Galvin, who ran against Frank White, had information and knew that this guy was coaching first base for an independent baseball team as he's running for re-election to be county executive with all the issues in this county, and it was not brought up, that is an awful job by Frank White's opponent 2 years ago, Teresa Galvin. If that was common knowledge in Jackson County political circles, and it was not used
exploited
every single day, exploited by his political opponents, then they deserved to lose. This is pathetic. All the issues in this county, and the county executive, who's easily clearing 6 figures for the job, by the way, is out doing his hobby 4.5 months out of the year while the county goes to hell in a handbasket, potentially losing 2 pro sports franchises, last year's debacle with the property tax fiasco. And this guy's down there, telling his guy on first base if he's going to be stealing second or not in independent baseball? Are you kidding me?
He's working in another county across the state line.
Well, that's true as well. That brings up the whole next fiasco part of this story. I mean, that is unbelievable to me. And how is this something that every person on the county legislature isn't screaming about? I kind of fell into the information yesterday from a couple of people. It wasn't like it was provided to me like, hey, man, you won't believe this. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, Frank's out. He's, traveling. I'm like, traveling where? For what? Oh, the Monarchs are playing in Kane County tomorrow. And I'm just like, what? I mean, my jaw hit the freaking floor when I started hearing more of this information. So in the meantime, they're trying to get work done in Jackson County, but the executive's nowhere to be found. And one of the things they're looking to do, and they have some time to try to get this thing done, is they're trying to figure out if Jackson County will get a Chiefs-only 3/16 sales tax question on the ballot in November. This would basically be for half of the monies the Chiefs were going to get anyway. Not half the money, all the money the Chiefs were going to get. Half of that 3/8 sales tax that would have been split by the Chiefs and the Royals. So basically, it would be Jackson County saying, okay, Chiefs, here's your 3/16 of a cent, just like you were going to be promised on the April 2nd vote, and this is all yours. They've got some time to get that done, but it's not a lot of time. They have until late August to get something like this on the ballot. So there is some time on this deal, but you know what? Late August is going to be here before we know it, because the Monarchs' schedule, man, they've only got two Mondays off in the month of August.
Convenient.
So, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to get that thing going and moving real fast. Unbelievable, though, about Frank White. 913-408-7957. Go Kane County. Coming up next, the White House is claiming that the photos and the videos of Joe Biden are deep fakes. We'll get to it next. Okay, so all these videos that you've seen of Joe Biden here over the last few days, weeks, months, hell, 3.5 years, it's all one big deep fake. You're being tricked by crazy right-wing media. Do not believe your lying eyes. Don't do it, okay? That's now the message from the White House after, multiple videos have surfaced here in recent days of Joe Biden just showing his age. We don't need more proof of this, by the way. If you've followed the news cycle at the national level for any period of time over the last 3.5 years, you clearly have seen a diminished man in the White House. Those are just the facts. But now there is overdrive coming out of the White House to suggest that any video you see, whether it's Biden with the G7 summit over the weekend, whether it's Biden or late last week, whether it's Biden at the big fundraiser in Hollywood where Obama's dragging him off the stage, not literally dragging him, but guiding him, to put it politely, off the stage. And I said yesterday, I thought that was a bad job by Obama. Biden may have slightly froze up, but Obama made that thing look worse by kind of grabbing him by the wrist and, shuffling him or helping him shuffle off the stage. Obama made that situation worse than it maybe needed to be. And that went viral on Saturday night. So the reaction from Karine Jean-Pierre is basically, don't believe what you see with your own two eyes. And claiming it's, misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes and misinformation. And I'll quote the Washington Post, where they wrote about this, and they said how Republicans use misleading videos to attack Biden in a 24-hour period. And to their credit, we have a conservative Washington Examiner did call them out as well, calling out the New York Post. Ironically, several recent cheap fakes actually attacked the president for thanking troops. For thanking troops. That is what they're attacking the president for. Both in Normandy this happened, and again in Italy. And I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. And instead of talking about the president's performance in office, and what I mean by that is his legislative wins, what he's been able to do for the American people across the country, we're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos. And it is, again, done in bad faith.
An old friend who's feeling down, but he knows where she's going, yeah, she's leaving. She is headed for the cheating side of town. You can't hide your lying eyes.
Yeah, don't believe what you're seeing. That's the message from the White House. You've seen a president of the United States continue to struggle mightily, physically and mentally. And you've seen that decline on multiple occasions over the last few weeks. Now, do with the information what you want. If you want the guy to remain in the White House, that's your prerogative. You can vote for the guy, and you can basically say, listen, at this point, he's a figurehead. He's got people around him I trust. I don't like Trump, whatever it might be. That's your prerogative. To go out there and vote for Joe Biden and be under the belief that he's got people around him who basically are doing the job, and you'd rather have them in office than Donald Trump. You can feel that way. But don't tell me that what I'm seeing is not reality with this guy, John, please.
Must be a lot of Republicans in Australia at Sky News. Rita Panicky goes through these lefties losing it, and she'll break down most of these clips, and I see them all. And he goes into that frozen thing, and what's he doing with his hands? You know, he'll just be standing there, his hands are froze, and he's got that S-eaten grin on his face and with the 10,000-yard stare, you know, and it's funny because I don't think Australians have much invested in making fun of him in the sense of discrediting him.
No, they just, are seeing what they're seeing, just like we're just seeing what we're seeing. That's what they're doing at Sky News. I didn't realize Sky News was all in on this as well, but that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So, you see this stuff, and you say to yourself, okay, well, I don't need more examples of it, but let me just give you one more example of it from Saturday night at the big old fundraiser that Joe Biden did in Hollywood with Barack Obama. It's him and Obama sitting there, and they're supposedly talking about the economy. And just take a listen to how Joe just kind of trails off into who knows where when talking about jobs.
And guess what? It's growing. The economy's growing. People's doing better. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people. We've had over 15 million people brand new hired into the workforce. You know, my son says, we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplished. And you should say Joe Jobs.
What the hell was that?
He's a troubled guy.
What was that? My son says you should have Joe Jobs. Was he trying to say, like, my nickname should be Joey Jobs or something? What is he, joining the mafia? Like, I don't understand what that even was intended to be about. But you should see the video where Obama's sitting there and Obama's looking at him like, whoa, where are we going here, Chief? You know, Obama's trying to play it cool. Obama's a cool cat, cool customer. We know that. But when Obama's kind of showing signs of like, oh, boy, something going on here. This ain't good. Then you know it's really not good because Obama is a pretty cool customer. When he's starting to show that something may not all be there, then it probably is not all there. And that's just one example. So for the White House to come out Monday and basically say these are all deep fakes and cheap fakes, which I'm not sure what a cheap fake is. I never even heard of that phrase until yesterday. But to imply that somehow what you're seeing is just misinformation, disinformation from the media, from some media outlets, let's say, is not based in reality, because we're all seeing it with our own two eyes. Now, there's no doubt there are some things that are AI generated. And that's the scary part of social media today. That's the scary part of what we do today. I mean, I've got to double, triple check what I'm looking at sometimes and make sure it is real, because you don't always know. People create pictures and memes and videos, and they're AI generated, and you got to make sure that what you're looking at is real. I see stuff shared on Facebook all the time that's just crap. It's not true. They'll make up quotes from people. You know, there was stuff around Andy Reid and Harrison Butker that were just totally made up. But that's not what this has been about with the president right now. It's not. 913-408-7957 as we hit 6:43 on a Tuesday. John's in Topeka. What's up, John? Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, good morning, Pete. What we were seeing there on stage that Saturday night when they were up there was the current president and a demented old man.
Yeah.
That's what it's going on there.
And listen, you're not alone in feeling that way. That Obama's running the show. But here's go ahead.
Yeah, well, and the fact is that they're taking advantage of him, and they're just standing him up there, and I don't know how they get him all juiced up and jacked up for the debates, or do the State of the Union, but they're doing something to him, and it's wrong. It's just absolutely wrong, and they should. It should be criminal what they're doing to Joe Biden. I mean, the former vice president, because I don't really see him as the president. Because even what's her name, the spokesperson for the White House, she said, President Biden. I mean, it was as a gaffe, but they know who's running things. He's calling the shots, and we all know this. And Sky News has been calling it out for a long time. And I love their segment for Lefties Losing It.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah. It's
stuff.
great. Oh,
that's funny.
It's people melting down, and she's like, people melting down around the world about this one issue.
Well, I'll have to check that out on YouTube. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, buddy. That's interesting. Listen, there's no doubt that I think Obama still has a heavy hand in the White House. How much, I don't know. But we'll have a story for you next hour on how basically if this debate coming up in 9 days goes absolutely sideways for the president, they may finally pull the plug on the guy. That may be what ends up happening. So we'll have that story coming up next hour on KCMO 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as we approach 7 o'clock. 1 hour from now, we've got that next chance to win $10,000 for a Bass Pro Shops shopping spree. Tucker Carlson tickets at 8:15 on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Coming up next, Chris Kobach, the Kansas Attorney General, is leading a lawsuit against Pfizer. We'll tell you the details behind it, why he's doing it, next on KCMO. Chris Kobach, he's hitting Pfizer, announcing yesterday in a lawsuit that he is suing the healthcare and pharmaceutical company for alleged misleading claims the company made regarding the vaccine for COVID-19. So this came yesterday in a press release that was following a press conference that was done in Topeka. A lot happening in Topeka yesterday. We'll get to more on the Chiefs and the Royals and possibly going across the state line coming up at 7:05. But also in Topeka yesterday was Chris Kobach rolling out this complaint, which is being filed in the Thomas County District Court. So Kobach's argument alleges Pfizer misled Kansans about risks associated with vaccines, the COVID-19 shot, including to pregnant women and for myocarditis. And then there's this part, and this is the clip I wanted to play. I got a couple of items here from Chris Kobach I want to play for you. Specifically, this part from Kobach, where he talks about and he addresses the protective nature of the COVID-19 shot and what was alleged versus what came out to be true, and whether or not Pfizer was being truthful in what they first put out there with the COVID-19 shot.
Number 3, effectiveness regarding variants. Pfizer also claimed that its COVID-19 vaccine protected against COVID-19 variants, even though data available at the time showed Pfizer's vaccine was effective less than half the time against variants. Finally, transmission. Pfizer urged Americans to get vaccinated in order to protect their loved ones clearly indicating a claim that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination stopped transmission of COVID-19. Pfizer later admitted that it had never even studied transmission of it after its recipients received the vaccine and whether they could say it stopped transmission.
So that was Chris Kobach yesterday in Topeka. There's obviously a lot of layers to this that need to be addressed and should be addressed by the powers that be in the federal government and, of course, the pharmaceutical industry at large. But that one in particular is the one that still bothers me the most. We knew that the COVID-19 shot, especially for communities at high risk, was probably worth it, right? Older people who had pre-existing conditions, there was a value there for them. The risk was well worth it based on what we knew at the time about COVID. But there was a campaign, and I don't know who drove it. I don't know who's really to blame. Is it the federal government? Is it Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna? I don't know. But it was this whole thing of, well, if you don't get it, you're not protecting your loved ones. We all remember that, right? Who doesn't remember that? We all do. We all lived through it. And that turned out to be completely disingenuous. And we realized that very quickly when suddenly people who, had gotten it were still getting COVID. Now, they may not have been sick, but they were still getting COVID-19. So then it became about, well, did it lessen your symptoms? And that really depended on who you are and your background and things like that. So, I really hate relitigating and re-talking about COVID, to be totally honest. I'm just over it. But because of this news yesterday that Chris Kobach is now suing Pfizer, I am intrigued on a legal angle what exactly this means and what it can do. And is it just for political clout? Is it just for political attention? I hope not. I mean, Chris Kobach's not running for re-election this year. He's not in an election year. He won 2 years ago. He's got 2 more years to go. He's not needing to just sue Pfizer to then run an ad campaign saying, I'm suing Pfizer. I'll show them. So I'd like to think there's more to it than that. But I don't know, admittedly, how any of this ends. Now, Kobach's going to be here at 9 o'clock. So I'll be intrigued to hear his response, get his reaction, see what's actually realistic. I hope it's not for headlines where, we get the headline and then we're sitting here in 18 months being like, oh, yeah, whatever happened to that? Whatever took place there? I hope that's not the case, but we'll have to wait and see. 913-4087-957 as we roll through the morning on KCMO. Jason and KCK, let it rip. Jason, go.
Hey, Pete, real quick. First of all, I'll preface this by saying I got nothing against any of the shots for elderly folks or people that, feel they need it. But I was forced to take it at my job. I had already had COVID. I'm ex-military. We had lost one person to COVID, and after they forced us to take the shot in the group that I worked for as private contractors, we lost 5 within a month of these gentlemen getting the shot, 2 to heart attack, and then the other 3 to aneurysms. Jeez. And myself, I got, and it took a long time to get diagnosed, but I could hardly walk from room to room. I'd never had heart issues before. Fairly decent shape. But after the shot, within 24 hours, I could just feel my heart like I had just run a marathon all day, every day, all night. First, doctor said, yeah, you had a mild heart attack. And then when I told him that all this started after the shot, when I came back for my second visit, he said, well, I misread the stuff. You did not have a heart attack. It was my mistake. Had to go to another cardiologist, and finally was diagnosed with myocarditis.
How old are you, Jason?
I'm 48.
Okay, so you were 45 when all this happened.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, your story's not, unfortunately, it's more common than anyone has ever been willing to talk about and tell, and I appreciate the insight because I readily admit, I talk about it often, thank you, Jason, that I've gotten it. I got the Johnson & Johnson, and for 24 to 48 hours after that, I was kind of having these, heart palpitations, and they eventually just went away. And thank goodness, knock on wood, I sit here today feeling healthy as ever, and, it's an important part of my life as well. But listen, we just don't have all the answers. And, obviously when it came to younger people, younger men in particular, there have been a lot of concerns on what the ramifications were of it. Breaking news. Justin Timberlake arrested early this morning on Long Island, New York. The pop star facing DUI-related charges, expected to be arraigned this morning. Circumstances of Timberlake's arrest not immediately released. Of course, he's set to go on a global tour in support of his 6th album. I say this, of course, as if we all knew this. Everything I Thought It Was, that's set to start this month. So, Sag Harbor, New York. Justin Timberlake arrested early this morning after allegedly one too many drinks. Okay, so that news coming down here on a Tuesday on KCMO. We've got Tirade Tuesday just over 10 minutes away. Start thinking about those tirades. I'm ready for an epic one. 2 weeks ago, I would have rated that about a C-. Last week, we got up to about I'd say a B+. So we want an A+ performance this morning from you, especially with the heat wave coming in hot this week. So 913-408-7957. That Tirade Tuesday segment is just over 10 minutes away. It's as good as you make it. I can't improve Tirade Tuesday. I can't. All I can do is damage control. It's the one segment a week that is all yours, and I have zero editorial control over the content. So it's only as good as you want to make it out to be. All right. With that being said, as we roll towards the bottom of the hour on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, this article in the USA Today, opinion piece from Stephen Minnis. He is the president of Benedictine College. He spoke and wrote publicly for the first time about the Harrison Butker speech at Benedictine from last month. And I want to share some of this with you because I think it's just fantastic. We are trying to get President Minnis on the show in studio here as soon as his schedule allows it on KCMO. And by the way, the guy that runs the Benedictine board, Mike Kuckelman, brought by a polo, Benedictine polo, that I got to rock at some point. So we're excited about that.
I couldn't wear that. I'm a Mid-America guy. Same conference.
I know you couldn't. Are you okay, John, wearing one?
Well, no, I'm in the same conference as Mark. You know.
True.
Technically, we shouldn't be in this room together.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, as a Baker guy, I understand.
Yep.
Well, as a Villanova guy, I can wear it. I'm fine with that. But anyway, Minnis writes here in USA Today, Benedictine College is on a mission to transform culture in America. But we did not expect one commencement address to put us in the center of our country's current cultural wars. The experience, though, is a good reminder that the mission we have is more important than ever. Let me explain. Benedictine, the college I serve as president in Atchison, Kansas, was the site of the recent graduation speech by Harrison Butker, kicker of the Chiefs. In retrospect, it had all the elements needed to go viral. It was given by the high scorer from the last 2 Super Bowls who quoted Taylor Swift and offered views on politics, religion, and gender roles. No one expected it to be as big as it became, though. For days, talk shows weighed in nationwide. It seemed that everyone had an opinion, and some of the reactions were a surprise. For example, Bill Maher applauded parts of the speech on its substance. Whoopi Goldberg, along with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, defended Butker on free speech grounds. At first, the negative reactions overwhelmed the positive ones. We logged thousands of hateful emails and hours of angry phone calls. More recently, though, positive reactions have surged. Through it all, reporters, callers, friends, and foes wanted to know, do we agree with Harrison Butker's sentiments? We decided not to comment publicly on the speech. For one reason, doing so could incite the haters again. The other reason is even more significant. The demand that we weigh in on Butker's speech is exactly the kind of problem Benedictine College hopes to counteract in American culture. And that's such an excellent point. Even those of us who supported Harrison Butker wanted to hear from Benedictine. What do you guys think of Butker's speech? And the point is not, even those of us who agree, we get into this place where we demand somebody react to the words of somebody else. Benedictine hired Harrison Butker to give this commencement speech, or hired, whatever you want to say. They chose him to give the speech, and he acquiesced. The media, then, what they do is they try to shame somebody. What do you think about the speech? I mean, they do this all the time when Donald Trump was in office, right? Donald Trump would say something mildly controversial, or he'd put up a tweet, and every person in Congress who had an R next to their name had to have an opinion on what somebody else said, that somebody else being Donald Trump. Do you support those statements? Do you deny those statements? Do you like them? Do you not like them? How about Harrison Butker just speaks for himself? I know.
Talk about a bombshell.
I know. It's kind of crazy, right? But how about that? How about they just speak for themselves? Minnis goes on to write, the reaction to Butker's speech reaffirmed Benedictine College's commitment to be a university in the full sense of the word. The same Benedictine mission can be just as powerful in America as it was in Europe. Community is the answer to cancel culture. Faith is the answer to the culture of unbelief. And scholarship is the answer to the culture of relativism. As a Benedictine school, transforming culture is in our DNA, and as a U.S. college, transforming culture is our patriotic duty. Benedictine College is building a new classically designed library reminiscent of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. We are in the early stages of a proposed new school of medicine that will enshrine Catholic moral teachings on the infinite dignity of the human person as created by God. Benedictine is in a very good place right now. That Harrison Butker speech and the reaction to it, you cannot pay for that kind of marketing campaign. I don't care if you got a 7-figure ad buy on Fox News, radio stations around the country, digital, you cannot pay for the publicity that they received in the last several weeks. And it will do nothing but benefit them. It will do nothing but grow them on behalf of their cause. And good job by their president, President Minnis, in not backing down to the woke cancel culture mob and telling them all to basically pound sand. You'll love to see it. Well, this is an interesting take on the text line. Pete, I don't know how you can make the argument that anytime Frank White spends helping the Monarchs is time he doesn't spend helping the county. I imagine a lot of people like myself might think that's a good thing. Well, I see what you did there, and I respect that take, basically saying Frank White can do less damage being the first base coach of the Independent League Baseball team on the other side of the state line than he can actually doing his job as the county executive. I genuinely can respect that to a degree. But remember, last summer, when the county was going to hell because you had all these issues with people's property taxes, people literally didn't know if they were going to be able to stay in their homes. And you want to talk about the ultimate let 'em eat cake moment? It's Frank White as the county executive sitting on the first base sideline in another state for an independent baseball team. I mean, I'm saying shame on me. I wish I admittedly had this last year. Could you imagine what that would have looked like if the media did an all-out blitz, and not against Frank White, but just on behalf of the Jackson County taxpayer, where, you know, you had one picture which was a line of dozens of Jackson Countyans sweating bullets outside of the Jackson County courthouse waiting to talk to somebody about their property tax bill, and then that picture side by side with Frank White, you know, tapping some guy's tush on the first baseline as the first base coach. Could you, that is the ultimate let 'em eat cake moment right there. And nobody did it. And I don't know, maybe nobody knew like me. I look at the Monarchs website. It says Frank's been involved with the team in some capacity for the better part of 12 years. And I knew he was in and out, and we talked about it early this morning. We knew he was involved in some capacity. I didn't know he was literally sitting on the first baseline whispering in the guy's ears sweet nothings about when to steal second for independent league baseball. And by the way, all the talk, you heard from the Royals and the Chiefs in recent months about how, and they basically said this in a nicer roundabout way, how difficult it was to work with Jackson County, specifically leadership, and try to get some answers from leadership on what was going on and, try to negotiate deals and come to, mutually agreeable conclusions for the stadiums and the teams. It doesn't help when the guy views it as a part-time job, when he's spending 4 months sitting on the first base sideline for the Monarchs. And I'm telling you right now, if this was known by Teresa Galvin, who ran against Frank White, she was the Republican who ran against Frank White in 2022. And she was, by the way, in the Jackson County legislature. So theoretically, if this was going on, she knew this. Nobody told me, and that should have been the entire campaign right there. If the people that ran her campaign knew this and did not lean into it, then they deserve to lose. I mean, that is embarrassing if they didn't go down that road, John, and they knew about it.
Here, I'm thinking Frank could still come to the meetings and then go and, how far is it around the Independent League? We're talking about Gary, Indiana and stuff. He could get on Claire McCaskill's plane and make the games around here in Lincoln and Kane County and et cetera.
You got to go up to, by the way, after they start their series tonight in Kane County, Illinois, they're shooting up north to Sioux City to take on the Explorers for a big 3-game set this weekend. So just keep an eye on that here as we Chicago Dogs this weekend. Sioux City's at home next week. So they're back for a home slate starting on Tuesday the 25th. So we'll see if he shows up to the meeting on Monday the 24th.
There you go.
How that plays out. But, I mean, it's really embarrassing. And shame on all of us in Kansas City media. Now, somebody did tell me when I was finding out about all this yesterday from multiple sources that other prominent people in TV media were basically handed the story on a silver platter and did nothing with it. And if so, shame on them. Meantime, the second I find out about it, I'm sharing it with you here on KCMO because that's how we do our business. When I find out about it, you find out about it. We're not here to protect anybody. But my goodness. But yeah, maybe Mark's looking up the spreads, by the way, on the Kane County Monarchs game tonight. So let us know what you're thinking there, Mark, on some parlays as you get set for the evening, okay?
Over-under on a couple hits.
Yeah.
I need to look up their names before I bet.
Over-under on Frank butt taps down the first baseline, all right?